Let me begin with a confession. For a long time, I was the laziest person I knew. Not just your average couch potato, but the kind of person who would sleep until noon, wake up just in time for lunch, scroll on my phone until it got dark, and then somehow still feel too tired to do anything. If you're thinking this sounds like a bad habit, you'd be right. But the truth is, it feels like more than just a habit. It was a lifestyle, a mindset, a quiet resignation that life didn't really require much from me, and I was okay with giving it nothing in return. 7 years ago, I would have described myself as someone resting between jobs, waiting for the next opportunity, waiting for motivation to hit, waiting for some grand change to happen in my life. But nothing ever changed. Days bled into each other. I had big dreams, but they never made it past the planning stage. I had notebooks full of ideas that I never started, gym memberships I never used, to-do lists that became tomorrow's to-do lists again and again. And every time I push something to the next day, I feel a little more disappointed in myself, but not disappointed enough to actually do anything about it. It was strange. I knew what I was doing was wrong. I knew I was wasting time, potential, and even my own self-esteem, but I couldn't move. It was like being stuck in quicksand made of excuses. If any of these sounds are familiar to you, you're not alone. I didn't know it back then, but millions of people live like this, stuck in a loop of low energy and high guilt. They hate that they aren't moving forward, but feel powerless to take the first step. I still remember those mornings clearly. Waking up at 10 or 11 a.m., turning off my alarm 5 times before finally dragging myself out of bed. I'd make a half-hearted breakfast, open my laptop, stare at the screen for an hour doing absolutely nothing productive, and then tell myself I deserved a break. From what? I hadn't done anything. And so the day slipped away, again. You might think this story is about someone who is motivated by ambition or discipline, but that's not entirely true. I wanted to be better. I wanted to do more. But every time I tried to push myself, it felt overwhelming. Tasks looked bigger than they were. Challenges felt impossible. Even the idea of starting feels like too much. It was like having an invisible weight on my shoulders. Not heavy enough to knock me down, but heavy enough to keep me from standing up straight. I had a problem, and I knew it, but I didn't know how to solve it. Then one day, something changed. Not because I found a motivational video or read a life-changing book. Nothing that fancy. It happened because I was bored, truly, painfully, desperately bored. It was a cold day in Saigon, one of those rare, chilly mornings that make you want to stay under the blanket forever. But I had already spent hours doing nothing, and it was driving me crazy. The internet wasn't helping. Social media felt empty. YouTube felt repetitive. Even Netflix couldn't hold my attention. I felt trapped. Trapped inside my room, inside my body, inside my own lazy habits. So I did something I hadn't done in months. I put on my shoes and went outside. No plans, no destination. I just started walking, slowly, aimlessly, like someone trying to escape their own thoughts. The air was cool. The streets were quiet. My feet hit the pavement in rhythm, and something strange happened. After about 20 minutes, I started to feel good, really good, not excited, not ecstatic, just peaceful. My head felt clear, my shoulders relaxed, my chest wasn't tight anymore. I didn't realize it then, but my body was doing something incredible. It was releasing chemicals, happy chemicals, the kind that reduces stress and makes you feel alive again. By the time I reached the park, I felt like a new person, and I had an idea. Not a huge idea, just a tiny spark. A thought. What if I did something useful, right now, while I still feel this good? So I took out my notebook and pen. Yes, I had brought them with me, just in case, and I wrote down a few ideas I had been avoiding. Nothing fancy, just a small list of things I wanted to do this week, and then I picked one, just one. I walked to a nearby cafe, ordered a drink, sat down, and did it. It took me 20 minutes. Something I had been postponing for weeks was done in 20 minutes, and I actually enjoyed doing it. That's when I realized I had discovered something powerful, a small trick, a personal hack, something that didn't feel like discipline or self-punishment. It feels natural, effortless, even. I had stumbled on a secret, a way to beat laziness without fighting it, a method that works with my brain, not against it. That was the first day of my new life. I didn't know it then, but I had just unlocked something that would change everything for me. Not overnight, not in some dramatic movie-ending way, but in small, consistent steps. And it all started with one walk. The method that changed everything after that first walk. Something inside me shifted. It wasn't a huge change, not yet, but it was enough to make me curious. I had stumbled upon something that felt good. It worked. I didn't know how or why, but for the first time in years, I had taken real action, and it didn't feel like a fight. So the next day, I tried again. Same routine. I let myself sleep in a little, but not too late. I got up, skipped the endless scrolling, and headed outside. I didn't think too much. I just walked, slowly, at first. No goal, no pressure. After about 25 minutes, that feeling returned. The lightness, the clarity, the sudden urge to do something. This time, I didn't even need the notebook. I already knew what I wanted to do. I walked toward the same cafe, found a quiet corner, ordered my drink, and started working, just like that. No drama, no overthinking, no procrastination. It felt strange, honestly. I wasn't used to being productive without forcing myself, but here I was, doing what needed to be done and enjoying it. It became a pattern. I'd go for a walk, feel that rush of calm, and then tap into that energy to do my tasks. Some days I wrote, some days I edited photos, some days I planned. But the most important thing was, I showed up. That was new for me. Before this, my biggest enemy was always the beginning. Starting anything felt like lifting a mountain. I thought I lacked motivation. I thought I needed to fix my mindset. But maybe I just needed to move. So I started designing my days around movement. I began each work session with a walk. I didn't care if it was sunny or cloudy or cold. I walked through noisy streets and quiet alleys, through parks and sidewalks, and sometimes even malls when the weather was bad. And always, like magic, the same thing happened. My mind cleared, my mood lifted, and I became ready to work. It was so consistent that I began to trust it. I no longer waited for inspiration. I created the conditions for it. Let me give you a real example. There was a day I had a lot to do, to writing tasks and a video script to plan. Normally, I would push one or all of those to the next day. But that day, I took a long walk first, 30 minutes. I timed it so that I'd end near a new cafe I wanted to try. I sat down, ordered an iced coffee, and began working. 1 hour later, the first writing task was done. Another 45 minutes. The second one was finished. By the time I left the cafe, the video script was halfway drafted. I didn't rush. I didn't pressure myself. I just followed the energy. It sounds so simple, maybe even silly, but it worked every single time. And over time, that became a kind of routine. Not rigid, but reliable. I knew that if I walked, I would feel better. And if I felt better, I could do more. Not just more, but better. This wasn't willpower. It wasn't motivation. It was chemistry, biology. Something in my body shifted when I moved. I started thinking of my daily walk as my secret weapon, a booster, a switch that turned my brain from lazy to ready. And the best part? It cost nothing. No subscription, no coach, no app, just my legs and a decent pair of shoes. Some days I didn't feel like walking. I was tired, moody, unmotivated. But those were the days I needed it most. And every time, without fail, once I got past the first 10 minutes, the resistance faded and the reward came. Eventually, I started experimenting. What if I walked to a place I'd never been? What if I listened to music or not? What if I brought my laptop to the cafe and worked right after the walk? I tried all of it, and slowly I built a new version of myself, someone who moved first, then created, someone who used the body to unlock the mind, someone who no longer waited for the perfect mood to get things done. Here's the thing. Laziness doesn't always mean you're broken. Sometimes it just means your brain isn't getting the signals it needs to start moving. And walking simple, old-fashioned walking can be that signal. It's like lighting a match. You don't need a fire to get started. You just need a spark. There was another layer to this transformation too, something deeper. As I started getting things done, as I began checking things off, my confidence returned. I began to respect myself more. I felt less like a burden and more like a builder. I wasn't just filling my time, I was using it, and that did something powerful. It broke the identity I had built around being lazy. I stopped seeing myself as someone who always failed to follow through. I started seeing myself as someone who showed up, who delivered, who finished what he started. And that identity shift was everything. Because once you start to believe that you are the kind of person who does the work, it gets easier to do the work, even on hard days, especially on hard days. It's not about becoming superhuman. It's about becoming. Now that you know how this simple routine helped me break free from laziness, let's talk about why it works. Because once you understand the science behind it, you'll not only believe in the method, you'll trust it. You'll know that it's not just a random trick or a temporary fix. It's rooted in how your body and brain naturally work. Let's start with a basic truth. When you feel lazy, it's not always a character flaw. More often than not, it's chemistry. Your brain isn't receiving the right signals to get you into motion. It's like trying to start a car without fuel. You keep turning the key, but nothing happens. So how do you fuel the brain? Movement. When you walk, jog, stretch, or do anything active, your body starts producing chemicals, natural ones, that boost your mood, your focus, and your motivation. The most important of these are endorphins, serotonin, dopamine, and something called BDNF. These are not fancy supplements. They're produced by your own body, and the trigger, physical activity. Let me break them down a bit. Endorphins are like natural painkillers. They reduce discomfort and increase pleasure. That's why you feel lighter after a walk, even if nothing in your life has changed. Serotonin is a mood stabilizer. When it goes up, you feel calmer and more emotionally balanced. It helps fight anxiety and depression, two big contributors to chronic laziness. Dopamine is the motivation molecule. It's what gives you the desire to act, to finish a task, to chase a goal. People who struggle with procrastination often have low dopamine activity. But exercise, it spikes dopamine, and that makes you want to move. BDNF is like fertilizer for your brain. It helps grow new brain cells, sharpens your memory, and improves learning. Think of it as the nutrient that keeps your mental engine running smoothly. And all of these, every single one, are triggered by physical movement. So when I talk about walking before working, I'm not just giving life advice. I'm helping you hack your brain chemistry. I'm giving you a shortcut to unlock the emotional and cognitive state you need to do meaningful work. But there's more. Exercise also increases blood flow to your brain. That means more oxygen, more glucose, more energy delivered directly to the organ you rely on to think, plan, write, build, or create. That's why, after a walk, you often feel sharper, more awake, more you. You're literally feeding your brain what it needs. There is even a study from the University of Georgia that blew my mind when I read it. They found that when people were feeling tired, drained, and mentally exhausted, physical activity gave them 3 times more energy than sitting down to rest. 3 times. That's huge. Think about that for a second. Most people, when they feel tired, assume they need rest. They lie down, scroll their phone, or take a nap. And sure, sometimes rest is necessary. But other times, what you really need isn't rest, it's activation. Movement doesn't just restore energy, it creates it. That's what I discovered without realizing it. And once I understood the science, everything made even more sense. This is also why people who exercise regularly often report better sleep, more focus, higher resilience to stress, and improved emotional regulation. It's not just about burning calories. It's about building the internal environment you need to function well. And you don't need to be an athlete. That's the best part. You don't need a gym membership, a trainer, or a strict schedule. You don't even need to run. A walk is enough. A short one, a light one. All it takes is consistency and intention. Now let's get practical. You might ask, how long do I need to walk to feel the effects? It depends. For me, 30 minutes was the sweet spot. But some people feel the boost after just 15. Others might need 40. You'll know when it happens. You'll feel the shift. Your mind gets clearer, your heart lighter, your body more at ease. And once that happens, don't waste the window. That's your golden hour. That's when your brain is ready. Sit down, work, write, plan, create, use it. It won't last forever, of course. The energy fades eventually. But here's the trick. When you repeat this enough times, day after day, your baseline changes. You stop feeling like a lazy person trying to force action. You start feeling like a doer, builder, someone who just gets things done. It becomes who you are. You build momentum, and momentum is the opposite of laziness. There's a psychological phenomenon called the activation energy barrier. It's a term borrowed from chemistry, but it applies to human behavior too. It means that starting something usually takes more effort than continuing it. Once you're moving, everything gets easier. Walking helps you break that barrier. It lowers the cost of starting. Instead of sitting at your desk and trying to force your brain to turn on, you turn it on before you get there. Instead of trying to think your way into action, you move your way into it. That's the secret. It's not about motivation. It's about movement first. Now let's bring it all together. You've heard the story. You've seen the method. You understand the science. But here's the final piece, the most important one. None of this will matter unless you try it. I know that sounds obvious, but trust me, it's not. A lot of people hear good advice. They nod, they agree, but then they wait. They wait for the right moment, or for more motivation, or for a better version of themselves to show up. That moment never comes, because here's the truth. Laziness doesn't disappear on its own. You can't wait it out. You can't outthink it. You can't negotiate with it, but you can move through it. That's why I want to challenge you to try this for just 1 week. Don't overthink it. Don't aim for perfection. Just try it. Pick a time, morning, afternoon, evening, doesn't matter. Go for a walk. Start small. 15 minutes is fine. If you're feeling low, stressed, uninspired especially, then just go. Don't worry about pace. Don't worry about form. Just move. Then, right after your walk, do one small task. Write 1 paragraph, clean 1 drawer, make 1 phone call. Start that one thing you've been putting off. If it doesn't work, you've only lost 15 minutes. But if it does, you may have just discovered the tool that changes everything. Because what begins as a method eventually becomes a mindset. And what becomes a mindset eventually becomes a lifestyle. Here's something else that happens when you do this consistently. Your self-image starts to shift. You stop seeing yourself as a lazy person. You stop calling yourself someone who always procrastinates, And that's powerful, because how you see yourself matters more than almost anything else. If you keep telling yourself that you're lazy, your brain will look for ways to prove you right. But once you start proving to yourself that you can act, even in small ways, your brain adapts, it rewires. And suddenly, you're not trying to become productive, you're the person who gets up and walks. You're the person who shows up for their work. You're the person who starts 7 when it's uncomfortable. And little by little, day by day, that identity becomes your reality. Look, I know this isn't flashy. It's not a hack. It's not a secret trick. It's not some breakthrough that only a few people know. It's simple. It's human. And that's why it works. You were designed to move. Your biology supports it. Your chemistry supports it. Your future depends on it. So start. Start with a walk. Start with 15 minutes. Start before you feel ready. And when the energy kicks in, when the fog lifts, when the guilt fades, when the fire returns, use it. Don't waste it scrolling. Don't waste it doubting. Channel it into something real, right? Build, call, create, learn, act. Because action, consistent, small, honest action is what will finally silence the voice in your head that says, you're not the kind of person who follows through. You are. You just haven't proven it to yourself yet. But you will. And when you do, laziness won't be a problem anymore. It'll just be a memory. Something you used to struggle with before you learned how to turn on the engine inside you. Before you realized that you already had everything you needed all along. You were never broken. You were just still. Now it's time to move. Let the first step be the start of the next version of you. One that's focused, energetic, ready. I believe in that version of you. Now it's your turn. If you found this video helpful or inspiring in any way, I'd be truly grateful if you could give it a like. It helps more than you think. Feel free to share it with a friend who might be stuck in that same lazy loop. Maybe this is exactly what they need to hear today. And if you'd like to see more content like this simple, science-backed real, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so we can meet again every week right here. Thanks for spending your time with me. See you next time.